I made sure my bosses didn't get their bonuses. I was good. Damn good. Project timelines, resource allocation, risk mitigation. I ate that stuff for breakfast. For the past 5 years, I'd consistently delivered complex software projects on time and under budget for Omnitech. But did that translate into recognition? A decent raise? The corner office I deserved? Nope. It translated into Mark, my direct supervisor, basking in the glory, slapping me on the back a little too hard and saying, "Good job, team." I really steered the ship well on this one, Mark. The guy who couldn't tell the difference between Java and JavaScript, who scheduled meetings for 8 a.m. on Fridays because that's when senior management is most receptive, and who, on more than one occasion, asked me to explain basic concepts like the cloud, as if I was teaching a toddler. He was, in a word, infuriating. And David, his boss, the senior VP? He was charming, all smiles and handshakes, but just as clueless. He'd wander into project meetings, throw out buzzwords like synergy and disruptive innovation, and then leave, leaving Mark to scramble to decipher what he meant. David cared about one thing: the bottom line. And as long as my projects kept the bottom line looking healthy, he was happy. He certainly wasn't interested in the fact that it was me doing all the work. The latest project, Project Phoenix, was a massive overhaul of Omnitech's core customer relationship management CRM system. High stakes, high visibility. Perfect for a career-making move, right? Wrong. It was another opportunity for Mark to shine, another chance for him to take credit for my meticulous planning and execution. "Sarah, I need you to synergize the deliverables," he'd said in one meeting, squinting at the project plan as if it were written in hieroglyphics. "Make sure we're maximizing our disruptive potential in the Q3 rollout." I just nodded, resisting the urge to roll my eyes. I knew what he meant. Keep things on track and don't screw it up. I delivered. Phoenix launched on time, under budget, and with rave reviews from the sales team. Customer satisfaction scores skyrocketed. But during the celebratory lunch that Mark took credit for organizing, I overheard David telling another VP, "Mark's really got a handle on that Phoenix project. He's a natural leader." That was it. That was the moment I snapped. A week later, the promotion list came out. My name wasn't on it. Mark's golfing buddy, a guy in marketing who thought A/B testing was a new type of battery, was promoted to senior manager. I walked into Emily's cubicle, practically vibrating with rage. Emily, a graphic designer in the marketing department, was my work confidant. She listened patiently as I ranted about Mark, David, and the injustice of it all. "They're never going to appreciate you, Sarah," she said, handing me a stress ball shaped like a tiny mark. "You're too good at your job. They take you for granted." "So what do?" I asked, squeezing the tiny mark until its foam face distorted. "Quit? Find another soul-crushing corporate job?" Emily grinned. "Or you could make them pay." That night, fueled by bitterness and a large glass of wine, I started digging into Omnitech's performance review process. I wanted to understand exactly how Mark and David's bonuses were calculated. That's when I found it. The loophole. The bonuses were tied to project completion. Specifically, a project was considered complete when it met certain predefined milestones and was delivered to the client. If a project was complete by the end of the fiscal year, December 31st, the revenue was booked, and Mark and David got their cut. But I discovered that the integration metrics into the client's environment to actually have the desired impact in KPI metrics was not assessed for up to 1 year later. Here's how it works. Omnitech got a big check for deliverables. All that was needed was the deliverables, not to have the client actually benefit from them. The light bulb went on. The next morning, I walked into Mark's office with a carefully crafted proposal. "Mark, I've been analyzing our project timelines, and I think we can optimize our delivery schedule for the remaining projects this quarter," I said, forcing a smile. "By pushing back a few minor milestones, we can free up resources for Project Chimera, which is facing some critical delays." Chimera was Mark's pet project, a half-baked AI initiative that he'd championed. He was desperate for it to succeed. He looked skeptical. "But those milestones are important," he stammered. "Of course," I said smoothly. "But the impact will be minimal, and it will give Chimera the boost it needs." He hesitated, then his ambition won out. "All right, Sarah, but make sure everything stays on track. My bonus depends on this." That was music to my ears. Over the next few weeks, I subtly delayed key tasks on several of Mark and David's bonus-dependent projects. A minor technical glitch here, an unexpected resource constraint there. Nothing that would raise any red flags, just enough to nudge the completion dates into the new year. I told Emily about my plan over lunch. She was initially hesitant. "Isn't that risky? What if they find out?" "I'm being careful," I said. "I'm covering my tracks. And besides," I added, a steely glint in my eye, "they deserve it." Tom, the senior developer on my team, started noticing the delays. He was a grizzled veteran, seen it all, heard it all. He called me into his office one afternoon. "Sarah, what's going on with Project Atlas?" he asked, his voice gruff. "The deployment is supposed to happen next week, but you pushed back the testing phase. Why?" I took a deep breath. I knew I couldn't lie to Tom. He'd see right through it. "Tom, I can't tell you everything," I said, "but let's just say I have my reasons, and trust me, this is for the greater good." He studied me for a moment, his eyes narrowed. Then, a flicker of understanding crossed his face. He'd seen Mark's antics. He knew how the game was played. "All right, Sarah," he said finally. "I trust you. But if this blows up in your face, I'm denying everything." "Deal," I said, feeling a surge of gratitude. As the end of the year approached, Mark became increasingly frantic. He was constantly calling me, demanding updates, micromanaging every detail. "Sarah, are we going to hit the deadline for Project Voyager?" he'd ask, his voice tight with anxiety. "My bonus is riding on this." "We're doing everything we can, Mark," I'd reply, my voice dripping with false sympathy. David, meanwhile, was blissfully unaware. He'd pat me on the back at the Christmas party, saying, "Great job this year, Sarah. Keep up the good work." I just smiled and nodded, knowing that his world was about to come crashing down. December 31st arrived, the final deadline. I watched the clock tick down, a sense of grim satisfaction washing over me. As predicted, several key projects narrowly missed the completion cutoff. Voyager, Atlas, and a smaller initiative called Project Nova were all pushed into the new year. The following week, the performance reviews were conducted. I sat through my own review, listening to Mark drone on about my areas for improvement, which were mostly fabricated, knowing that he was about to get a rude awakening. Afterward, I saw Mark and David huddled together in David's office, their faces grim. The door was closed, but I could hear their muffled voices. Later that day, Mark stormed into my office, his face red with rage. "You," he shouted, pointing a finger at me. "You did this, didn't you? You deliberately sabotaged those projects I feigned innocence." "Mark, what are you talking about?" "I worked tirelessly to ensure those projects were successful. I'm just as disappointed as you are that they were delayed." "Don't play dumb with me, Sarah," he yelled. "I know you're behind this. You're jealous of my success." "Jealous?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "Mark, I have nothing to be jealous of. You're the one who's about to lose out on a six-figure bonus." He sputtered, unable to find a coherent response. He knew he couldn't prove anything. I'd covered my tracks too well. The next day, I heard through the grapevine that Mark and David had a tense meeting with HR, trying to argue for an exception to the bonus policy. They claimed that the delays were due to unforeseen circumstances, that the projects were substantially complete, and that they deserved their bonuses. HR didn't budge. The policy was clear. No completion, no bonus. The rumors spread like wildfire throughout the office. People were whispering, pointing, and snickering. Mark and David were the laughingstock of Omnitech. Emily cornered me in the break room. "Did you do it?" she asked, her eyes wide with excitement. "Did you really do it?" I just smiled. Let's just say that karma has a way of catching up to people. Tom gave me a subtle nod of approval as I walked past his office. He knew. He knew exactly what I'd done. In the weeks that followed, I noticed a shift in the workplace dynamic. Mark was subdued, less arrogant. David was still charming, but there was a coldness in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. I felt a strange mix of emotions, satisfaction, guilt, and a little bit of fear. I'd gotten my revenge, but at what cost? Had I crossed a line? One afternoon, I was called into David's office. He was sitting at his desk, his expression unreadable. "Sarah," he said, his voice unusually serious. "I know what you did." My heart skipped a beat. "I don't know what you're talking about, David," I said, trying to maintain my composure. He leaned forward. "Don't lie to me, Sarah. I've been looking into the project timelines. I know you deliberately delayed those projects to prevent Mark and me from getting our bonuses." I remained silent. "I'm not going to fire you, Sarah," he said. "You're too valuable to the company. But I want to know why you did it." I hesitated, then decided to tell him the truth. I told him about Mark's credit stealing, about the missed promotions, about the feeling of being undervalued and unappreciated. David listened patiently, his expression unchanging. When I was finished, he sighed. "I understand, Sarah," he said. "But you went about it the wrong way. You should have come to me. We could have addressed these issues." "And what, David?" I asked, my voice laced with sarcasm. "Would you have suddenly realized my worth? Would you have fired Mark and given me his job?" He didn't answer. "Look, Sarah," he said finally, "I'm willing to make you a deal. I'll make sure you get the next promotion that comes along. I'll even give you a significant raise. But in return, I want you to use your knowledge of the system to help us prevent this from happening again." He paused, looking at me expectantly. "So, what do you say, Sarah? Are you willing to play ball?" I stared at him, my mind racing. This was it. The moment of truth. Do I take the deal, secure my future, and become part of the system? Or do I walk away, knowing that I've made a difference, even if it means facing the consequences? I took a deep breath. "David," I said, a hint of a smile playing on my lips, "I have a few ideas." The screen fades to black.